Welcome back. Welcome back to Montreal by night. So last time it seems that the stream stopped again after 6 minutes. So I'm gonna start again at Atwater Avenue. Atwater is the westernmost boundary of downtown and the rough border between Westmount and Montreal. And Montreal proper? What? Okay. Along Atwater Avenue, below Ville-Marie Expressway, is Little Burgundy, an impoverished part of town. Originally, Little Burgundy, I had Little Little Burgundy. It's the way it you have to say it. I don't know in English. Kind of sounds a bit weird. Little Burgundy. Originally, Little Burgundy. It sounds so weird. And the area around the Lachine Canal consisted of mills and factories. The region attracted a blend of honest and hardworking people in the 20th century. An influx of African American rural workers led to the opening of several popular jazz clubs, speakeasies, and gambling dens. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression, the crime rate rose sharply and has only grown worse since. In the 1960s, Little Burgundy was the target of ambitious urban renewal. A large number of the simple homes and factories were demolished to make way for low cost housing, the Canadian equivalent of housing project. Okay. Many residents had already moved on to bigger and better things. Those who did stay soon left too, disappointed by the modern look and still rising poverty of the region. Only those on the brink of poverty remained. Today, Little Burgundy, along with the neighboring Saint-Henri and Pointe Saint-Charles Street, is the closest thing that Montreal has to a slum. Crime and poverty run rampant as gangs divided along ethnic and linguistic lines control areas through intimidation and violence. During the summer months, living conditions in Little Burgundy are bearable, but the long winter months are harsh and brutal. Few homes have heat, relying instead on crude fires that often result in devastating blazes that sweep through the district. Children, however, suffer the most. The infant mortality rate is high, especially in the winter, as the bitter cold and uncaring parents claim the lives of the innocents. It is not uncommon to find the decaying remains of infants in the alleyways of Little Burgundy, and the Sabbath have taken to embracing those whom they find close to death, letting the frenzied beast feast on their parents and siblings. Place of note, the Canal Lachine. Although the Lachine Canal, oh, the Lachine Canal once served as the getaway between the Great Lakes and the rest of the world, it has fallen into disuse since the St. Lawrence Seaway opened in 1959. Today, the canal is dotted with abandoned and crumbling factories and docks. The structures are used by homeless and runaways who seek shelter from the elements, their parents, or even their past. The Sabbath usually raise these factories when stocking up for blood feasts. St. Catherine Street. Running the length of downtown, St. Catherine Street is in many ways the heart of Montreal. Along its sidewalks are the stores, churches, and buildings that gives the city its unique flair. Unfortunately, harsh economic times and political uncertainty have taken their toll, and what was once a safe area is now rife with crime. Many shops lie abandoned, their boarded up windows and deteriorating facades testament to the dark power that lurks in Montreal. The empty and dark interiors of these stores serve the Sabbath as meeting places, torture, torture chambers, and makeshift morgues. In contrast, the still thriving classical and Art Deco buildings on St. Catherine Street are cluttered with flashing neon signs that advertise strip joints and pawn shops. They are placed where forbidden lusts are realized and dreams are sold. The street attracts a large number of homeless and impoverished people who gather in grimy alleyways and corners, often braving the worst weather condition, hoping for a few pennies from shoppers and passerby. A large number of these beggars belong to immigrant families that, unable to earn a living and having to no other means, sell their sons or daughters into prostitution to make ends meet. Nightfall, when both undead and mortal predators roam the street, is another threat entirely. Rapes, muggings, murders, and gang violence are on the rise and taint the downtown atmosphere. Most people tend to travel in groups, stick to well lit areas, and give beggars and the homeless a wide berth. Although this area is mainly a commercial and financial district, a variety of apartment buildings and rundown row houses line the dimly lit side streets that intersect St. Catherine. The conditions of these places vary, but most are roach infested one room apartment and burned out shells that are rented out to exorbitant rates. The underground city, located beneath the downtown core and covering over 30 kilometers, is a vast underground network of tunnel malls, metro station, and government offices known collectively as the underground city. The whole complex is connected to the metro, which makes it possible to travel to virtually any location within the core without having to step outside. The network is densely packed with countless narrow corridors, each lined with small stores and restaurants. It connects the many malls that makes up the underground. By day, the complex is relatively safe. The number of shoppers and security guards keeps crime to a minimum. After dark, however, the underground city becomes the domain of the Sabbath. The majority of the tunnels and hallways are gloomy and poorly patrolled. Strange sounds and screams can often be heard coming from the shadows. The Sabbath takes great pleasure in toying with unsuspecting shoppers and employees. The Kainites play cruel games of cat and mouse that usually end with the bloody death of mortals. Shopping. Let me have a sip. St. Catherine and the underground city comprise the shopping mecca of Montreal. Almost anything can be bought or sold in the shops that line the street. Both above. I have to look for you. Wow, Leaf Jones. And below ground. Most stores and malls cater to the mundane public, but it is not uncommon for fashion conscious Sabbath to shop in or more often break into the area's boutiques. It's kind of funny because I arrived in Montreal in 2005, so I don't really know Montreal from the early 90s. So it's kind of interesting because there's quite a few things that they mention that I'm like, that I have a different perception of. And because I left in 2011, like, it's not that far away. So between when the book was written in the early mid 90s and 10 years later when I arrived, and 5 years later when I left, which is now 10 years ago, I feel there's a quite a big difference because it's like 30 years ago ish. So I feel a lot of the flair and the taste, the mouthfeel of Montreal has kind of changed a bit. It's not as like because they're talking, for example, about Saint Henri, but and Little Burgundy, but now they are quite middle class neighborhood. Little Burgundy is kind of big, beginning to be a bit more fancy and stuff. There's quite a few developments um, done around the Canal Lachine, which is a really nice place to be now. um, and so it's kind of funny to read about those areas that I know as fairly modest, if not um, quite not fancy like downtown or the old port, but like still quite modern and with some cachet. So reading how Little Burgundy and Saint Henri were what was the closest in Montreal to be a slum, it's kind of it doesn't feel like I've known those neighborhood this way, so it's kind of weird. Anyway, Les Cours Mont-Royal, one of the smallest and most elegant downtown malls, Les Cours has a modern Baroque feel. It's decorated with columns, fontaine, and a central courtyard. Above the mall's opening, above the mall's open courtyard is a series of expensive and luxurious condominiums. Carolina Vallès, the Archbishop of Montreal, makes the entire top floor of a secondary haven, from which she can keep an eye on her mortal granddaughter, who lives in the same building. Promenade de la Cathedral. The Promenade de la Cathedral, one of the most unusual downtown malls, is built directly beneath the Christ Church Cathedral. The builders tried to incorporate the architecture of the cathedral, one of the finest Gothic buildings in Canada, into the construction of the mall. The result is a Gothic motif and style combined with modern efficiency. Dark stone walls and vaulted ceilings, combined with stone carving and statues, give the promenade de la Cathédrale a cavernous ambience that makes it a popular Sabbath hangout. The central area under which the cathedral is located is a hanging garden that makes the mall a hauntingly beautiful place for kind nights to hold meetings and the occasional blood feast. Above ground shopping. Aside from the small stores that are unable to pay the steep rent of the malls, there are a number of shopping institutions such as Old Renfrew, the Hudson Bay Company, Eaton's, and Olivi's that caters to those with expensive taste and a love of designer fashions. These four complexes were modeled in the early part of the century and are beautiful, especially the Art Deco style, Old Renfrew, and Eaton's building. Nightlife. Bishop Crescent and De La Montagne Street, which intersect Sainte Catherine, are bastions of the majority of Montreal megaclubs. These top 40 night spots, with their multiple bars and dance floors, attract underage youth and those wanting to lose themselves in alcohol or sex. Crescent Street is the most famous of the three streets. In Althis, the Hard Rock Cafe, Sir Winston, Churchill Pub, and Thursdays, Sainte Catherine is also home to a number of city strip clubs, such as Club Eden, which features for select customers only child dancers of both sexes. Art and culture. Located on the corner of Jeanne-Mance and Sainte-Catherine, in the cultural nexus of Montreal, the Place des Arts complex, spanning an entire city block, this series of modern buildings and the site of in the site of the Montreal Museum of Contemporary Art, the Orchestre Symphonique de Montréal, the Grand Ballet Canadien and l'Opéra de Montréal. Place des Arts is also the main venue of Montreal's International Jazz Festival, which is held every June. Places of interest: Saint James United Church, St. Catherine and City Councillors. Lost amidst the facade of cheap stores that are characteristic of this stretch of St. Catherine, St. James was once one of the most beautiful churches in Montreal. In 1926, the church was in need of funds, and the property around it was sold to local entrepreneurs. As a result, the church's beauty was lost among the neon of downtown. In 1983, the church itself was put up for sale, but by 1999, the only buyers interested wanted to turn it into a parking lot. The church was left to fall apart and has become a haven for the homeless and a place where prostitutes can turn their trade. The international of the church, the international, I'm losing track. I'm already getting lost in my thought. The interior of the church is in terrible condition. Many of its stained glass windows uh, have been stolen or broken, and the stench of human excrement hangs in the air. Since 1991, the Sabbath has used the church's basement to dispose of the remains of blood feast victims. To date, the pieces of over 500 corpses lie in the darkness, in various states of decomposition, including a number of staked Cainites who failed their creation rite. Surrounded by rotting bodies, these vampires have slowly lost their sanity, like I do. On rare occasions, a curdling scream can be heard from the bowels of the church. A few homeless mortals, desperate and hungry, have resorted to eating the decaying corpses, which has resulted in the spread of infectious disease. Guy Street. A few blocks east of Atwater is Guy, a major north-south axis that allows access to the Ville-Marie Expressway and Little Burgundy to the south and Côte-des-Neiges and Mont-Royal to the north. The district has gone through some changes in the last few years as buildings around the street have been torn down and to make room for parking lots. However, economic difficulties have forced developers to abandon their project before completing them, resulting in a number of partially demolished buildings and empty lots. The stylish York Theatre is one of these casualties. Once a magnificent building, today it is a virtual ruin where only those Cainites who remember its heydays come to enjoy its tragic peacefulness. A few blocks south of the intersection of Guy and St. Catherine is the elevated Ville-Marie Expressway, which forms a border between Little Burgundy and downtown. At night, the area beneath the expressway is home to a number of gangs, which makes passage through it dangerous for mortals. Jeez. However, that same danger makes the area a prime feeding ground for Cainites. Place of interest: Station 25. Located on the corner of de Maisonneuve and Saint-Mathieu, a block west of Guy, is Police Station 25, which has jurisdiction over the entire downtown core. The station's officers are infamous for their intolerance of minorities and their harsh, even brutal methods of law enforcement. The station's 100-year-old building is dark and cavernous, is a dark and cavernous place with small barred windows and narrow corridors. The number is under the control and watchful eye of Felix Carsons, one of the Grimaldi revenants of Archbishop. I want to check that. The Montreal General Hospital, located above Guy Street and overlooking the entire city, is the monolithic General Hospital. The expensive building is Montreal's largest hospital and also one of its oldest. Wing upon wing has been added to it over the years, creating an intricate maze of corridors and split levels. General Hospital houses one of Montreal's largest morgues, a notable area of interest to the Sabbath. Sir George William Campus, Concordia University. Concordia University is one of two English universities in Montreal. It excels in liberal and creative arts education. The George William campus is located near Guy Street and houses the university's extensive and newly renovated library. Maison Mère des Sœurs Grises, the Grey Sisters Convent. This imposing H-shaped structure has served as the home to one of Montreal's oldest religious orders. Built in 1963, it originally includes a hospital, an asylum ward, a convent, and a chapel. The convent has since burned down and been rebuilt a number of times. Today, the convent is largely unused. Only a few nuns live there. The hospital and asylum have been abandoned for years and are rumored to be haunted. I think I've done a good 30 minutes. Do you have much left to do? I could finish. That. At least to Sherbrooke Street. Sherbrooke Street. Though St. Catherine and Sherbrooke are separated by only 2 blocks, they couldn't be more different. Whereas St. Catherine is bustling with malls, bars, and strip clubs, Sherbrooke is upscale and high class. Nearly traversing the entire length of the city, Sherbrooke ran through a number of different areas, from the East End to downtown to Westmount, and finally to the middle class neighborhood of Notre Dame de Grace and Montreal's West. Sherbrooke, between Guy Street and Saint Laurent Boulevard, is where Montreal's wealthy go to shop. This stretch is lined with designer boutiques, art galleries, and the city's most prestigious hotels. The Ritz-Carlton's Kempinski and the Westin Montreal Hotel dominate the area. Limousine from Westmount and Outremont Ferry, Montreal elite along the road to their social function, sheltering them from the reality of the city. The Golden Square Mile. The area known as the Golden Square Mile is located directly north of Sherbrooke between Guy Street and McGill University. It is here that years ago Montreal's elite, including the Molsons, O'Keeffe's, and Bronfmans, built their sprawling mansion before moving on to Westmount or Toronto. The streets north of Sherbrooke escaped the development in the 1950s. that drastically changed the look of other areas. Today, large homes and mansions dot the steep streets, creating an antiquated atmosphere. McGill's University. One of the top universities in Canada, McGill dominates the Golden Square Mile and downtown. Its main campus is located on McGill College Street above Sherbrooke and contains a number of Gothic buildings. The campus grounds rival those of American Ivy League schools, and their buildings spill over several blocks, making McGill a virtual city in its own right. McGill is connected to the vast underground city, giving the Sabbath access to the school's numerous libraries and buildings. The Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. On Sherbrooke, between Redpath Street and Avenue du Musée, sits one of Montreal's architectural marvels, the Museum of Fine Arts. Neoclassical facade and white marble interior makes the building a veritable shrine to some of Canada's most prized artistic possessions. Kinites of taste are interested in a small exhibition also known as the Chamber, which is open primarily to select members of the Society of the Museum and Montreal's artistic community. The Chamber is open on Wednesday night for a special exhibition that Postmortem Performance Art as organized by the Red Rose and Creamy Jade of the Widows' Coven. Most exhibition consists of live evisceration and sculptures of human limbs and flesh. Special mortals who attend the usually simultaneous are you are usually simultaneously repulsed and fascinated by what they see, and they often live with the desire to perform their own work of art. Angels Fall. Sheltered from the rest of the city by a 12-foot high stone wall and thick trees is the abandoned mansion of Ravenscrag. Sorry. Ravenscrag, which served as a mental hospital during the 1950s. The home was vacant until Ezekiel and his pack 2517 turned it into their lair, and they then opened a club called Angels Fall. So I have Ravenscrag. I have started to kind of model it in LFD. Because it kind of, as it used to be, a mental hospital. It's kind of funny because I think it's still kind of that, isn't it? Like a special psychology wing for McGill now. Anyway, the club's dark brooding atmosphere and location make it a hit with the Sabbath, especially with members of the young covens. Angels Fall is open to both mortal and kyanite. Most humans don't survive the night. The main dance floor is located in what was the mansion's ballroom. The original wooden floor was replaced long ago with grey linoleum tiles for the asylum, and that linoleum is stained from years of use. The first and second floor contain patient and examination rooms, which are still furnished with all medical equipment, couches, and appropriate lighting. The basement contains an intricate system of corridors and cells that are illuminated by black lights and candles. The basement also houses the human remains of past inmates and recent victims. Each member of 2517 has a personal haven in Ravenscrag, hidden in an intricate system of secret passages. These tunnels lead to the mansion's ruined chapel that serve as the convent's communal lair. Well, there you go. Yeah, we're gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna leave the East End for another time. Cool. Did it stop this time? No. It seems to have hold the connection for the whole stream, which is good, I hope. Well, that was fun. I will keep on working on that just so I can practice and remind myself of everything that is written. And when I can, when I feel like it, when I think I'm ready for more, I'll get back to it. And maybe at some point, I kind of want to do a video that kind of explore that a bit more visually and not just me reading. But that's a good exercise, and it's a good way for me to get back into it and start paying attention and notice different point of interests. Alrighty, that's all for tonight. I will see you another day.